Ann Sheu, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
You have such an interesting business that is making ripple effects without a doubt. You're doing a lot of speaking, you're helping a lot of entrepreneurial couples. So let's just dive into it. Let's talk about what inspired you to start Mpowered Living and what was that personal turning point that made you realize that what you were experiencing really needed to be shared with other people.
Yeah. Well, the family coaching that we're doing was kind of an accidental business. It didn't start out as a business. It started out with me and my husband, Sonny, looking for a better way to live family life. And
Mhm.
really, it started as a way to try to survive being together and not end up separated, divorced. Like we were just trying to find a better way, honestly. And we didn't have a ton of marriage mentors, people that were married a really long time and happily married, madly in love after 50, 60, 70, like
Mhm.
we didn't have those couples in our life.
Right.
So we didn't really know what to do. So we turned to what we knew, which was how do you build great teams? How do you build great organizations? What are the fundamental building blocks of those things? And
Mhm.
we started applying those ideas to our family about a decade ago. And it really, like, I mean, I don't want to say it was overnight, but it was pretty quick that we saw a significant difference in our family, in our personal relationships, our relationships with our extended family, with our friends. And it really changed things for us and how we prioritized life. In the first 30 something years of our life, we prioritized career, work, success, right, over everything else. And with these tools that we were starting to use in our family, it really helped show us a different way. It showed us a way to live where we were building businesses so that they could serve our family life and not making our family constantly be at the whim of business.
I really love that. And that's why I think you're so aligned to be on this podcast because that's our mission is to help moms realize whether they have a partner who is an entrepreneur or not, that one, it's possible to build a business that serves you and your family. And you can actually become a better parent and become a better human and better to yourself as a result of that intentional living that you focus on so much on your podcast and in your business. And so, I mean, it just fits perfectly because, all the episodes I listen to, all the content I receive from you, I'm just like nodding, going, uh-huh, uh-huh. And yeah, you're so right. My husband and I just celebrated our 20th anniversary this year, and it's like there isn't a lot of role models for achieving that, especially in our society today where we're emphasizing hustle even more. So I just love what you're doing.
You know?
One of the things that I love that you talk about is women kind of reframing their personal quote unquote selfish goals
Mhm.
in the midst of a marriage and having a family. And so, can you talk about how and why women have a really hard time carving that out for themselves and feeling so guilty about that within a marriage and family?
Yeah, at Empower Journey, we talk about it as me for we. Like you got to do your me work first, and ultimately, you doing that me work will serve the family. But what we see time and time again is when women come to our workshops, they're mixed gendered workshops, but the women consistently show up and they feel guilty about spending the day to do their me work. And they feel like it's selfish to, I mean, if I could give you a dollar for every, if I had a dollar for every time a woman told me that this was the first time in a decade or 2 decades that they have dreamt for themselves, thought of themselves and what they want. I mean, it is so easy for women to put their own needs, wants, desires, goals on the back burner.
Mhm.
Part of that, I mean, obviously there's, a bunch of society pressure, but I think the other part of it is everything else screams really loudly, right? Like if there's a fire at work, you're going to jump in and do what you need to do at work. If there's something going on with your kids and your kids are sick, or there's some, carpool mix up, like you're going to jump in and do what you need to do there. If there's not dinner on the table, like you're going to jump, like everything that we are responsible for are these fires that burn really brightly and really loudly. And so it's hard to ignore those things. And I'm not saying ignore them, but it's hard to prioritize yourself when you've got all these brightly burning fires in your life. And so, I think that's partly why our workshops are so powerful, is because it creates a safe space for women and men to come for one day and come to our workshop, come to our office and do the work. Because if it weren't for that dedicated day where they're really stepping away from the day-to-day of their life, stepping out of the weeds, it's really hard to prioritize. Like if I just gave people our workbooks and said, hey, go do this,
Mhm.
it's hard for them to find 6, 7 hours to go and actually sit down and do the work. And a lot of people
Mhm.
have great intentions and they think that they can or they will do the work, but time and time again, it really requires having somebody walk you through that exercise and kind of hold your hand and kind of be your accountability partner in this journey, because it's hard to do it on your own.
It really is. And I think deciding that this is what I'm going to do and showing up and committing to being at an event. So now my interest is kind of piqued. What are some of the things that you help your attendees learn that helps them start to realize, oh, I can start to put myself first in certain ways, and that can have a good effect. I don't have to feel guilty about it.
Yeah, we talk about like, on the airplane, like putting your own oxygen mask on first. This work is putting your own oxygen mask on first, because I think we all live under this fallacy of like, oh, we can keep pouring into others and keep serving others and it'll be fine. But at some point, if you don't pour into yourself, you don't take care of yourself, and you don't get clear about who you are and what you need, you are going to run out of oxygen. You're going to run out of steam. You're like, it's impossible to pour from an empty cup. And so what we are trying to do, we call them our one day workshops called Know Thyself. And in this Know Thyself workshop, we are really helping people get back to who they are, taking off all the hats that they wear: mom, dad, entrepreneur, business leader, volunteer, board member. Take off all those hats. What is left underneath all of that? What are your values? What are the things that really light you up, that drain your energy? Really getting clear on what's on that list, and then what's your big vision for your life? How are you going to go make that a reality? Really making sure that by the end of the day, they're able to very clearly articulate what is important to them, what it looks like when they show up at their best, what it looks like when they show up at their worst, and then their big dream for their life. Being able to articulate those things gives them the clarity, the confidence to go and advocate for themselves. And then being able to share that work with their spouse, their life partner, their best friend, their parents, their siblings, their kids. Now you have an entire inner circle that can advocate for you as well. Because I really believe that your inner circle wants to see you succeed and thrive. And it's hard. Like my husband will always say to me, help me help you. Like I want to help you, but I don't know what it is that you want. And so I believe that for our inner circles, like that's what they feel is like, help me help you. Like I want to help you, but if I
Mhm.
don't know what your goal is, then I can't help you. If I don't know what your dream is, I can't help you get there, right? And so this work, this Know Thyself workshop is really about that clarity so that you can
Mhm.
go and advocate for yourself and then let your inner circle help you as well.
Hmm. Sounds like a really powerful experience. And I think it's really important that we have things like that in our busy lives that help us slow down and connect with ourselves. I think that's so important with the clarity and the confidence that you mentioned. But you also mentioned all of the hats that we wear. And especially for our listeners who are running businesses and have families and are trying to be the best partner possible, yeah, what does that integration look like? Because so many struggle with that. And, what do you think that we're getting wrong by trying to juggle it all and sometimes not doing it so well,
Yeah.
gracefully or happily?
Yeah. Well, I love that you use the word integration because I don't believe in balance. Like I kind
Yeah.
of cringe a little bit when people talk about work-life balance because balance
Agreed.
like brings to mind the scales and like, oh, you're
Right.
out of balance, And so for me, it's really about integrating things so that
Hmm.
it feels good and it feels aligned with my values and it feels aligned with my greater vision for my life. Um, One of the tools that we do in the Know Thyself workshop is called Decade Dream. It's essentially what is your one big goal for the next 10 years? And part of how we help clients integrate the individual with the family and with the work is both partners in the relationship have their individual decade dreams. And then together, after they get their clarity on their individual decade dreams, they come together and they create a family decade dream. And so that's how you make sure that the family is supporting in a very healthy way the individuals, but the individuals' needs and wants aren't becoming a burden to the family, aren't outweighing the needs of the family. And so that's how you create that healthy integration between the individual's needs and the family needs. And then taking into account, like, what does support from work and business and career look like to really serve these bigger goals at the individual level and the family level? And I think that's how you integrate everything in a very healthy way versus what most of the time, what I see is people will start with the work. What do I want to achieve at work? How do I get there? And then how do I make my family fit into the whatever's left, right? And so it's really about making sure that your family team is your priority because what we say all the time is your family is the most important team you're ever going to build, right? Like you could spend hours every day, which most people do, building their work team, but your family team is the most important team in your life. And when family doesn't work, like it's hard. It's hard to get work working if family life is sucking at home. And so really starting at the family level and making sure that you figure out what does success look like for you at the individual level, family level, and then how does work support that so that you're
Hmm.
creating a business or a career supports your dreams and not the other way around.
Yeah. It sounds really simple, but we don't. I really think the secret is that we just don't slow down and we think that it happens magically by itself. That there's not like those who we might observe who quote unquote might be having an easier go of things than we are. We think it just happens naturally, like, oh well, they have kids who are more compliant or what or
Yeah.
whatnot. And that's not necessarily the truth. I think it really takes that intentionality and, like you said, just really thinking about what is it that I want my family unit to achieve, in addition to whatever you want to achieve. And it just takes that intentional effort. I mean, my husband and I work all the time at that. We actually didn't realize how intentional we are about it. But we definitely are intentional about it. But what I think so many people are doing is just surviving the week, right? They're
Mhm.
just going through the motions, they're just getting through it. So, how do you coach entrepreneurs, or just honestly, I think this conversation is helpful for anyone, be regardless of what you do. to start designing their life with intention?
So I just want to go back to like why this happens and why we so often prioritize the work. I think
Mm.
it's because, I mean, this is just I haven't done research on this, but just from what I have observed, we spend the first half of our life hustling and chasing a career, right? And so we've developed these habits of prioritizing work and career. And then all of a sudden you get married and maybe you have kids, but we forget to recalibrate and like, oh, we've got this new team in our life. And so you've built a lifetime of habits where work was the focus, work was the priority, right? It's school and then work. And so um, you almost have to zoom out a little bit when you start a family and get married, whether you're having kids or not, but zoom out and recalibrate. Like, what
Mhm.
are the things that I have been doing and prioritizing? How does that need to shift now that I'm in this new dynamic, this new
Mhm.
season of my life?
Mhm.
Because if you don't, and you keep with that same level of intentionality at work, then what's ultimately going to happen is your family's going to get put on the back burner. It's going to be second place to your work your entire life.
Mhm.
So you've got to take that time to recalibrate and zoom out.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we forget to do that. And I think that's where we see, things kind of go awry is when built those habits
Right.
all these years of
Right.
prioritizing. So
Yeah, and we don't realize how holistically everything is connected. Like you mentioned earlier, if things aren't going well at home, how is your performance going to be at work or, in your business? Or that's why I love, talking to trauma therapists, talking to parenting coaches, talking to people who help you organize your life. It's all connected. We don't run a business or have a family in a vacuum. It's all interconnected. So I love that you're reminding us of that. But so the we now have like a better idea of why we focus on the work, but what are some things that we can do to begin to get off the hamster wheel and not just prioritize the work and
yeah.
realize how important it is to slow down and spend time with your partner and your children and how that feeds, everything else in our lives.
Yeah, so the biggest step is awareness,
Yeah.
right? Like without awareness, you're just acting out of default, out of habit, which is what we talked about earlier, right? Like your
Right.
default becomes whatever you've been trained to do for the first 25, 30 years of your life. And so the biggest piece is that awareness piece. And if you can have the awareness that, hey, you got to where you are in your career because you were intentional, right?
Mhm.
Whether you have your own business or whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, you set the goals that you wanted to achieve. You got clear about what the company's goals were, and you made sure your individual goals aligned with those company goals. You put the right people in the right seats. You were getting clear about values and vision and purpose, doing all of that work in the business setting. But once you can have the awareness that, hey, you're also building a team at home, maybe you should apply that same level of intentionality to your family team, right? Your Most of your listeners are probably having some sort of weekly meeting with their team, weekly leadership team meeting, weekly staff meeting, but are we having a weekly meeting at home? Not. And so those are some of the just like simple things that we work with our clients on to make sure that the level of intentionality that they're applying to the workplace,
Mhm.
hey, let's let some of that carry over to the family so that you can be intentional about your family and your individual life, setting goals, getting clear about your values, getting clear about your purpose, having weekly meetings with your partner. And so I think that's one piece is the awareness, like having the awareness of what did you do to become successful at work? Okay, that's what it takes to build a successful work team. What type of energy now do you want to apply to the family space? So having the awareness, and then after that, I would say the next most important thing is that decade dream work, right?
Mm.
At work, you may be setting 10-year goals for your company, 5-year goals, 3-year goals, but are we doing that long-term visioning for ourselves? Because if we're not, then we're just going to be constantly on that hamster wheel that you talked about. Because if you don't know where you want to go long term, how are you going to, how are you ever going to get there, right?
Mhm.
So that decade dream of what does success look like for you in 10 years? What what does it look like if you're living in alignment with your values, you're really getting to live into your strengths, your unique gifts, and you're really being intentional with your time and your energy? What does that life look like in 10 years? And then how do we go and make that happen? But it's that 10-year thinking that is, I think, missing for a lot of people. And it really, once you get clear on what that 10-year goal is, that 10-year goal is able to serve as a filter for so many things. Like
Mhm.
that decade dream, once our clients are able to identify their decade dream, they can use it as a filter for what job they're going to take, what project they're going to work on, who they want to hang out with, where they want to move to. I mean, all of the big and little life decisions, they're able to filter through the lens of, does it get me closer to my decade dream? If not, I'm
Mhm.
not going to do it.
Mm. Sounds like a really powerful tool to take you out of that reactive mode that we find ourselves in on that hamster wheel. So I really love that. But as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, we've gotten to the point where we have our 10-year goal. We're beginning to finally set goals for ourselves. We're starting to think about where we want our family to go and how you are envisioning things. But I think the real foundation to putting that into action is good communication, right? So let's talk about that. And what are some powerful tips that we can put into place to communicate better? Because I think we all could do it. It's a work in progress every day.
Yeah, so I would say that it's communication and alignment, right?
Mm,
And so the work that our clients do in the Know Thyself workshop, that individual work, is actually a prereq to doing the year-long couples program, because we will not allow couples to start the year-long program and do the family work if they haven't first done their individual work, because that individual work is so foundational. It's so important. And so once you get that individual work done, it goes on a document that you call your individual roadmap, and you share that document with your spouse so that you guys can then support each other in your individual dreams. And then together in the year-long program, you're able to create your family roadmap. So you've got two individual roadmaps and your family roadmap. And every single week, you are meeting with your spouse, with your partner, whoever it is, but you're meeting every week as a leadership team for your family, because you are the leaders of your family. Like when I talk about family leaders and like you showing up as a leadership team, people are really confused by that term because they've never really applied those ideas and that concept into the family space. But you are a leadership team just like you are a leadership team at work. Your family is a team and it needs a team of leaders, and it's you and your spouse. Like, sorry, there's no one else, right? Like, it's not going to be your kids. You don't want it to be your kids. It's you. And so, having that weekly leadership team meeting where you and your spouse meet every single week and really talk through um, making sure that you're on the same page with priorities. How did we do this week? And checking in on the most important things, and then making sure that you're aligned on executing the following week so that you guys are moving into that week with clarity and confidence, and everybody knows who needs to be doing what when they need to be doing it, and it really helps reduce the frantic and the chaos that often happens in family.
that is wonderful. I love hearing that. And I've actually had a conversation. I'm a former military spouse. And so I've had conversations with other military spouses saying this concept of leadership is so familiar to us, and it's part of your life when you are part of the military unit. And so, what gave you that kind of inspiration to look at, individuals as leaders of a family or parents as leaders of a family?
Well, I mean, when we started using these, when we were trying to pull from our knowledge base a decade ago of trying to figure out what we're going to do for our family, we were literally pulling from how do you build a strong team? Well,
Hmm.
a strong team has
Yeah.
a team of leaders. And
Hmm.
so it was kind of a no-brainer for us that like, oh, well, when you think about it that way, then of course you've got to
Hmm.
show up as a leader for the family. What does that mean?
Hmm.
Well, leaders set the vision, they're meeting every week, they're making sure that they're aligned, they're clear, and they're able to execute really well. So we started doing that in the family space. And this weekly meeting actually came out of me being very, very exhausted with trying to have important conversations in passing with my husband. Like, hey, like he's like trying to get out the door to go to an important meeting. And I'm like, hey, by the way, what are we going to do about XYZ? And then he's like, I don't know. And it was just so hard to find time to have these important conversations because we were workaholics. We were so busy with work and there wasn't time in a normal day to sit down and have conversations about upcoming travel or where we're going to move to or what we're going to do about the business, right? Like all these things that we need to be talking about, but we just could not find the time because we were so busy. And so we, just committed to each other that we were going to meet every single week. And so now it's a dedicated time, a dedicated space every single week where I know I'm going to have his undivided attention and we are going to talk about the most important things in our family, our
Hmm.
goals, our dreams, our priorities, our commitments, and then also any issues that might be coming up. And so now I know I've got an hour every week where I can essentially dump all of the things that I need to talk to him about into this agenda. And I know it's going to get addressed because we're going to have time and space and he's going to be present and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. I love that. And I just find it so fascinating that we compartmentalize like what leadership means to us and where it should be applied. And and I think it's such a powerful thing when you start implementing those concepts outside of the workplace, outside of, something that you work on and are intentional about. I think that that's wonderful. So I'm sure you've heard so many stories about couples navigating ambition and parenting and partnership. So, what's a piece of advice that you return to again and again that seems simple but changes everything?
I think it's the me for we concept, right? I I'll give you an example. My husband is an avid mountain biker, and every Monday at 3 p.m., he has a calendar block to go mountain biking. And for the longest time, and I'm talking like the first 10 years that we were together, I was bitter, resentful, angry that he would disappear for 3 hours and go mountain biking every week without fail, unless it was raining, right? But it wasn't until we started doing this work and how I saw mountain biking show up on his individual roadmap time and time again about how it feeds his energy, how it's rejuvenating for him, how it really is important piece of um, of of who he is really. And so because he did that work and he was able to show me that it is not just a whim that he, the hobby of the month. It's not that for him. This is a really big piece of his life.
Hmm.
And so, with that awareness, with that knowledge, now I can fully support him in that instead of being bitter or resentful about him taking time off, taking time away from our family to go and mountain bike. I can fully support it because I know how important it is to him. And I know I really understand the depth of it and not it's just your silly little hobby, which is kind of what I thought it was before, right? And so, I think that was really um, transformational for our relationship. Not just the mountain biking example, but just holistically, the individual roadmap work, that me for we idea, really helped me shift away from um, bitter and resentful and feeling like he was being selfish on things to really understanding and grace and compassion um, and actually like gratitude that he has this because I know what it does for him now. And I
Mm.
would say I have he probably has a ton of examples the same way, right? Where he thought something that was important to me was silly or absurd or didn't make any
Mhm.
sense. But when he sees it on his roadmap and I can explain how it's connected to my values or how it drives my energy, oh, wow, there's like another layer of understanding. And with that
Mhm.
understanding comes so much grace and compassion. And so I think, that's probably been one of the most transformational things for our relationship.
That's a really powerful story. So often, I think women also, I know I've done this, is resent how like my husband can so easily and quickly and without any guilt choose something for himself that he knows is important to him and puts a flag in it and it's like this is my time and this is my thing. And so, have you learned to do that for yourself more easily without the guilt, given this transformational experience?
I mean, I would like to say it's a drastic improvement, and I know now what I want and need. I have that clarity,
Hmm.
and with that clarity does come confidence.
Mm.
But I would say what's been the most powerful for me personally is having my husband know because now he can advocate for me, right? He
Hmm.
can say, "Hey, Anne, you should say yes to that because I know that is feeding your energy."
Hmm.
Right? Whereas before I might, oh no, I don't want to do that because it's gonna intrude on our family time. Like he's able to remind me about things that I might forget when it comes time for there's an opportunity for me to put my own oxygen mask on first.
Mm.
It's easy to be like, oh no, not right now. I'll do that later. I'll do it in a different season when I've got more time. He's able to help me lean, and it's that help me help you, but he's able to help me lean into those things a little bit better and advocate for me. And I think that's been the most powerful. It's just having people that kind of have your back and know what you want and need and reminding you because as women, it's like really easy for us to forget. Like we are taking care of so many things. So yeah,
I think
while
there's even statistics on our like to-do lists and how much longer they are and
yeah, absolutely. So
yeah.
yeah, it has given me clarity, but the more important thing is it's given my inner circle. And I wouldn't just say my husband, right? Like my
Mhm.
friends have seen my roadmap work. They know what's important to me. They're able to remind me. And that has been the most powerful piece.
Hmm. I love that. And I love how you're showing that the work that you're doing is just not impacting you and your husband, but honestly, the biggest impact I think we're having is on families when we start to teach people how to live more intentionally and transform how they think and live their lives. And so, what do you hope a child who's growing up in an empowered family, what do you hope they learn about love, success, and being seen?
Mm, gosh. Being a mom is one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. But I hope that my kids will understand how important it is for them to advocate for themselves and that you don't have to like lose yourself in a relationship that can really get clear about who you are, what's important to you, that you know, life partner, a spouse will help bring
Yeah.
that to life and really fully support you because to me, that's what it looks like when you're truly seen, heard, and understood. Is you've done your work, you're able to articulate it, and you can communicate it to other people. Now they can support you fully, unconditionally, because they know exactly what it is that you want. They know how to speak straight to your heart, and they can support you in those things. And
Mhm.
I think that's one of the cool things about what's happened in my marriage with my husband, because I'm able to communicate those things better to him now. He's able to support me, and I hope my kids see that. Because
Yeah.
and then the other thing I hope is that they understand how what it looks like when you're able to create a career or a business that is serving the family and not the other way around, right? Like that it's possible to live a happy, fulfilled, purposeful life and still prioritize family,
Mhm.
because that's what I'm hoping we're modeling.
Yeah. I think the outcome of all of those things is just healthy relationships and happier people. And so I don't think we could wish for anything more for our children. So I think that those are beautiful thoughts on, what we can hope through doing this work. So, if there's one belief or habit or mindset shift you wish every entrepreneur listening to this podcast episode today would embrace, what would that be?
Hmm. I think that I have so many, but I would say that if you want to shift, the first shift is increasing your awareness and trying to figure out where you might have some blind spots. And then the second thing I would say is um, like really understanding what it looks like to live life on your terms, where you're living a values aligned life and designing a life that is truly yours and not what you have been told success looks like, right? Like whether it's from your family or from society or from media, all of these different definitions of success. I hope that the listeners will really take the time to try to figure out what their definition of success is, not follow else's. Because what is the point of doing all of this if you aren't even clear what's
Right. I think that leads to so much um, unfulfillment
Mhm.
and just stuckness. And when you're doing things for all the wrong reasons. And like you said, what's the point if we're going to do that? I love that you shared so many important thoughts and wisdom in this episode.
I add one more.
Yeah, sure.
I would just say that, like, I would remind the entrepreneur that success at work doesn't automatically lead to success at home. And I think that was a fallacy that I lived by
Mm,
for a long time of like, be successful at work, make a ton of money, and at some point you'll be happy, right? And I think we get into this like culture of hustle where
mhm,
we, and I don't think it's intentional, but we just assume that like make enough money, then I'll be happy. If I get this career, if I get this promotion, or I close this deal, or I exit this business, then I'll be happy.
mhm,
And my family will be happy. I'll make
mhm,
a little more money. We'll be able to go on this nice vacation. We'll be happy.
mhm,
I would just remind everybody that um, it doesn't really work that way, right? Like you
mhm.
can't just hustle and grind at work and assume that family is going to be there, that family is going to be happy at the end of the day. You got to be as intentional about your family as you are about your work.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I have a similar experience where I thought happiness and success happen to you and you
Mm.
don't cultivate it.
Yes.
But everything that we've talked about today helps you plant the seeds and cultivate that happiness and success, which I hope happiness is part of your success formula. And like I was saying, you shared so much wisdom and insight today. I'm sure you've impacted listeners. So, where can they continue the conversation and learn more from you and be part of Empowered?
I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook. I'll send you all of the handles for that so you
Yep.
can notes. And then empoweredjourney.com is where you can learn more about the workshops that we host.
Yep. And I will leave those links in the show notes below.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne, so much for your time today.
It was so great chatting with you. Thanks for having me.
The same.